Welcome. It's great we have a full house. It's great. Welcome to the Larry Sultan Visiting Artist Program. This program, named in Larry's honor, is a collaboration between Pier 24 Photography, CCA, SF MoMA, and with lots of support from Pier 24, incredible amount, and Randy and Bob Fisher and the Black Dog Private Foundation. So let's please thank them. You know, with it, we honor a dear friend of some of us, an artist, a great teacher and colleague, and just a great guy, Larry Sultan. Larry was a rigorous artist, not only in the classroom, but an inspired teacher in the studio, too. He walked through his life intently studying it, right up until the end, finding greatness in the smaller moments, humor in the absurd almost everywhere. And so it's fitting we are here in his name to enjoy both studying and being inspired. Just so that you know, we have two sets of people who are confirmed for next fall today, and I'm really happy about them. One's a twofer. It's Adam Broomberg and Oliver Channerin, and the other is Collier Shore. So with that, I think we'll have a great fall lecture series. Tonight, I'm personally pleased to present the final speaker in our spring 2013 lecture series, Mark Steinmetz. Mark, speaking about inspiration, he's been inspiring me with his black and white photographs for a long time. He has a way of taking portraits and doing landscapes that draw me in. They seduce me in ways that a lot of photographers are not able to do anymore. There's something very classic about what Mark does, yet he still kind of pushes some boundaries. I learned from him. I like that. And he's also a very good bookmaker. I'm assuming that he's the one that's making the books. His celebrated series of books, South Central, Southeast, and Greater Atlanta, which I've been trying to get for I don't know how many years now, published between 2006 and 2009, are celebrated classics already. And he followed up this trilogy with a book last year called Summertime. This May, Nazreli Press will release Paris in My Time, a book presenting work culled from several trips to Paris made over a 25-year period. Mark is in, I went and looked at all the pictures that he has in New York MoMA's collection, and there's a lot. And he's in every major collection in every major American museum. And he's taught at all the places that one wants to put on their resumes and teach. So I'm very happy that he's here today at CCA to add to our roster of people who have come. So thanks and welcome.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thanks to the CAA and CCA and the Stephen Wirtz Gallery for hosting me. Let's get this okay. Okay. Let me get this right. I'm just gonna fuss a little here. Can this be a little less bright? Is there? Well, I'm used to showing traditional slides, and this lecture, it's a digital presentation. I don't know if there's something about digital, but I'm showing a few more pictures than I would with a regular slide tray. I'm going to try to go through at a fairly quick pace. But just so you can see some more pictures than ordinarily you would. This is not my picture. This is a photograph by Gary Winogrand. I guess I haven't been to SF MoMA, but it's probably on the walls there. And I saw this picture as a high school student in Iowa. I'm not that I was truly from Iowa. My parents are European. My mother was French. My father was Dutch. I was born in New York City, but we moved around a bit. But I was still fairly not from an art background, and mostly interested in the sciences. And I saw this picture in the library of this high school in Iowa as part of a Time Life series of books. And often for me as a kid, there's a clarity around photography. If I was handed a camera by my mother to take a picture of my grandmother, I still remember that moment. I still remember the moment of coming back home from the beach at like 6 years old, and I had some little camera and leaning over the car, my belly against the car, and then framing the house, and the pleasure of kind of moving the frame lines around. So I had a lot of interests, but there was always a kind of a special sort of clarity with photography, and just that I remember all these moments as a child, and I don't, so much else I don't remember. But I saw this picture in Iowa, and I remember thinking that it was really, really good and rich, and it grabbed me. And the other pictures in the book were the experience ended very rapidly. You could kind of get the point of the photo, and you could move on. So I knew that somehow I was privileged as a viewer of photographs at the very least. And I didn't retain the photographer's name, but anyway, down the road a few years later, I did get to know Gary Winogrand. I moved out. First I went to college. I went to Middlebury College for a year, then Wesleyan for the remainder. Then I went to the Yale School of Art straight out of college. I was too young, I think, to be there, and after my first semester I dropped out. And it seems to me very bold what I did at that time, but I moved out to Los Angeles. I heard that Gary Winogrand was out there. And you must know LA if you're in San Francisco, but there's no center, it's just huge. And I ran into him like 7 times in the course of a month. So it was, everywhere. So we ended up, we were together at the Pomona, the county fair in Pomona, and we talked each time. I was 22 and he was 56. It turned out to be the last year of his life. We just talked, and we were close to, we lived in LA terms very close to one another. And then I drove him the next week there, and then I drove him around a bit. Anyway, so this is an early photo, 1983 from Los Angeles. I'm photographing, on the street, a little bit direct in the manner of Gary. Anyway, I think his question is a good question, and one that people don't really push themselves enough, in my view, or at least in those days. Now I'm more relaxed. Anyway, this is at the zoo in Los Angeles. And I was just trying lots of different things. For the most part, I'm not talking to people to take the picture. I'm making the effort to walk around and trying to find candid moments. This is a rare picture in that there's flash on the camera. Mostly I prefer available light. So this actually is at the fair, and Winogrand was there that day. So I'm, it's the old strategy of you have a camera, you frame the world, and then you lasso in certain facts, and regardless of what was really happening at the time, you're making this new fiction of the world. Do I have a laser pointer here? I like those things. No, I love. So here are these 3 kids kind of collapsing. It's similar to the picture that Winogrand, at least in my view, of the cow kind of falling down in the road. There's something strange about the time, it seemed to me. But some of the things that I was interested in at the time was like the boy's hand on the far, whose hasn't yet kind of fallen down. The way it looks kind of like Porky's hand, and just the way Porky is so happy in contrast to the kids who are just kind of down. So here's a little De Chirico. There were lots of influences. I could show you lots of pictures that are, oh, yay. And I just click it? Okay. There are photos that, very much in the Friedlander vein or Robert Frank vein. This picture, the Factory Valleys, which is an excellent book of these, Rust Belt towns in winter. I looked at that, and maybe that was why I was in this terrain. So the girl has a circle, the boy has a box. Anyway, so running around and taking candid pictures, mostly of kids. This picture, this boy reminded me a bit of, a Picasso blue period boy. There's a, rather elegant, here I can point, Calder-like structure with his, the fishing pole. But it's interesting to me that he's turning away from the activity that he's engaged in. I've always been interested in action, but also thought or dreaming. We have these physical bodies, but we're also have these inner lives. And the pictures are a mix of formats. This is 6 by 9 centimeter. So I would photograph out in public, on the streets. This is at a fair. Just public places, and especially where there's a lot of activity and you can just photograph sort of surreptitiously. And these pictures now are from the book Summertime that an Israeli printed last year. This is the cover of the book. Here, this is the picture where I talked to the person to take the picture, of course. This is the sort of initial picture of the sequence in Summertime. It's rare that it's hard to make good convincing pictures of people smiling. I'm always interested when I see a photograph of somebody smiling, if it's well done and not in a, selling something kind of way. But I just like that, the school bus is out there and he's just completely, relaxing. But it sets up a theme of schools out for summer for the book. And so most of these pictures are done after graduate school. I did return to graduate school after my short time in Los Angeles. And then I worked as a commercial photographer in Boston and then Chicago. This is in Illinois. And so for these pictures, many of them are done by, obviously they're not candid. I'm getting into more private spaces. I like this one. He looks like the lower boy looks like he's talking philosophy. I'm the kind of photographer, I like going out into the world and making the effort, and then just responding to what the world will offer. But really, it's really making the effort to make yourself available so that something can happen. I think it's important not to get too busy in your life, not to have the idea that time is money. So again, this is like the late 80s. This is why we have an obesity problem. And the photographers that I've most admired have been New York photographers and Paris photographers, the kind of traditions from those cities. So somebody like Helen Levitt, of course. And then here's Paris. Again, my mother was French, and she had some childhood friends who I could stay with for extended periods. So in France, the photographers that of course, Kertész and Bressay, Auger, and Cartier-Bresson. And an Israeli will be printing a book. It should come out in a couple months, called Paris in My Time. This guy actually looks a little like Bressay. And as Jim mentioned, these pictures span a length of time from the late 80s to like a year or two ago. This is similar to the boy who was fishing at Central Park. He's doing some activity but turning away from it. He's not seeing what's happening with the birds. I don't know if you can see. It's a boat made from egg carton. This is a good one. I like that. In this year, I think the French government was running out of money, so they let the Tuileries just kind of go. And of course, like a lot of photographers, I like ruins. In the book, things are always sequenced. You have this opportunity to put one picture after another, and so the meanings can grow and change. This picture is in the book, the Paris book that will come out, is paired with this one. Looking at the man, I don't know if you can see it too clearly, but the man through the plastic wrap. This one. This is the Parc de Sceaux, where Ajay took a lot of great photos when it was an abandoned park. Then I've cut out a lot of these. I'm just showing 2 pictures from Italy. It's a similar project in Italy. I've taught with the University of Georgia. There's a studies abroad program in Cortona, and there's a little book that Nisraeli printed. They have a series of one-picture books, and so my book is Italia. This looks like it looks a little Fellini-esque. Actually, just above there was the Borghese Museum at that time was divided, and there was a exhibition space right above. And I saw Venus and Adonis painting, and I thought, God, that's so great. I wish I, Then like an hour later, whoosh, yeah, Venus and Adonis, but I want in the style of Fellini. Here's a same thing. So anyway, I have a lot of pictures from Italy, but I'm not showing them now. Also, my first book was actually pictures of olive trees called Tuscan trees. So this is back to America and back to kind of early work. This is a series on Little League Baseball. I'd been photographing in a lot of, some in settings in neighborhoods and moving into more kind of domestic situations, a front porch or a backyard. But I wanted to do a body of work where all the pictures together helped tell a story. So I did 2 bodies of work, one on Little League Baseball and one on summer camp. Kids would, maybe they still do, but it's like springtime. A lot of boys go and play Little League Baseball until maybe June, and then afterwards go to summer camps. And so this gave just different opportunities to make a narrative picture. Just they would all the meaning, the effect would be cumulative, and you didn't need so much weight on the single picture. And I was interested in, you have 2 sides, one side wins and one side loses, and mostly I was photographing, the losers. I guess there. So here the flag is at half-mast. And this team, it really is, I don't like captioning things, but this really is the last pitch of the season. They're going down. Yeah, if I went to one, there's different cultures in every league, and if the kids say, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if we win or lose, you guys, then I don't go back there, There's no, but so a lot of it is about the predicament of being a kid, put into a situation. And these are, so a lot of this work of children, half of them are in the Boston area or New England, and half are in Chicago or out into rural Illinois. Okay, and well, thank you for laughing. So when I was in Madrid in November, and I said, this is my Guernica, and here is, thank you. But so this is what's great about photography, and why I try to make the effort, to find things. It's just that the world is brilliant. Things like this, the napkin tucked in, of course, missing a tooth, just these little chords, everything. You just can't, or I can't think my way into this. I have to just respond. It's interesting. If you play baseball, the one thing you're taught is don't bunch up. When you're catching a ball, you call and you spread out. But anyway, and all their eyes are shut, and it's like, So anyway, but then I mean, this is a good picture. I think did he catch the ball? So here, it's a larger negative 6x9. Just the feeling of the hand on the back of the neck. Okay, and I always have to. Okay, well. Well. It sounds like you've gotten the joke, but. Optimists thought, good, okay. And I don't want to push, but there is the book, The Animals by Gary Winogrand, all about this division of animals behind a fence and this land of viewers and spectators. And this work is very much the same, just a lot of fences. And there are some pictures of activity, but mostly it's stuff around the sidelines. I know John Sarkowski saw this and said, "A woman trapped in a world of male virtue." He always had. Then this is a similar series on summer camps. Both the baseball pictures and summer camp pictures, if you've done those activities, and I mean most Americans know about it, that there are certain things there's certain stuff and certain activities that are shared with both. The baseball game, you always have uniforms, you have the fences and dugouts. For summer camp, you have, sleeping bags and cabins and dining halls and campfires. So just all sorts of things to describe. So here's the interior of a cabin. Yeah. This kid's pretty good. So these pictures span, a number of years. Late '80s, I did some in the mid '90s. Now with digital, everybody. I used to supply them with prints. They needed black and white prints for their brochure, so I would take some pictures and give them some in exchange for access. And I contacted like the American Camping Association, which and kind of helped me to get into the camps. But now they don't need pictures. They have plenty of their own. So this is at the very end of the camping session. It's called The Break. And these girls who were just, behaving so horribly to one another all summer long, and now on parting, the depth of their love gushes out, and it's excruciating. Why is there? Should I move this? Is there a little arrow on all? There's an arrow on the sombrero, and I don't know what it's doing there. What the sombrero is doing there. This is from a series. At camps, there are these candy stores. It's a big event. The kids line up and they get pieces of candy using their coupons, sometimes based on merit. But I did a series of these heads as they approached the candy store. So that's the last of the summer camp pictures. And so I had been working in Chicago as a freelance photographer. I had started doing a little bit of teaching at school there, Columbia College, which was just teaching basic photo at night. A lot of construction workers who just fall asleep. I don't know why. But then I got a call to teach at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, like a one-year replacement. And I didn't know the South. I had, read Carson McCullers and Flannery O'Connor and Faulkner. And I went down and I was so excited. It was, weedy walkways, this wonderful humid light, just seemed like lawlessness and chaos everywhere. And then I saw this, I came along this scene of a baptism in a river. It was the first week I'd moved down to the South, and I guess I'd sort of expected to find something like that, just based on the literature. But it's very rare, and I haven't seen anything like it since. But again, it's sort of this, the hand on the back of the neck. But so these pictures are these are from the series South Central, which were made in and around Knoxville, Tennessee. This picture actually did not make it into the book. Mainly, I cut out a lot of just the easy Christian imagery. I didn't want it to be a book about with those notes in it. Mostly I wanted the pictures to be about this kind of terrain and this kind of subject. I had been, so these are now the early 90s. I think MIT put out a book on August Sonder that was very important to me at that time. At that time, books came out at a very slow pace. Now it's very rapid. I don't know how young photographers can sift through it all. It was just much more, I feel like having a waiver. Back in my day, we had one book and it lasted 6 months, But it's true. And Sonder had these portraits of people by the roadside, and I was interested in that. But mostly, there are lots of photos made in the South, and most of them, to my mind, are very romantic. People along, dusty, dirty roads, and I wanted to kind of suck the romance out and just do what was happening in America with billboards and interstate highway things, guardrails. That's where I wanted to do the work. And it shifted to, there's one body of work I didn't show here, Chicago Rush Hour, where I was, not photographing kids, but photographing adults, sort of tired adults at 5 p.m. So all these pictures are done by talking to people. They're all done with a larger negative, the 6x9 centimeter negative. You can do surreptitious photography in places with a lot of density, but in the rest of America where it's sort of thinned out, you have to approach people. It just won't work otherwise. And I'm interested in a kind of portrait, but I still want, activity. He is crumpling a paper bag. He's finishing up his meal. I'm giving very slight directions, such as, can you turn this way? But not much. Okay, I'm clicking this arrow. I'm what? Okay, there it happened. So the pictures are made, I'm just, again, going out. Whoa, not that sensitive. What's happening here? Okay, well, moving on. It's like, I clicked it a few times. Is somebody... What? The color wheel of death? have I initiated some sequence? I don't understand. Can I go back and be in control? I'm going to click this. Well, it wasn't doing anything. It had been. Okay, I'm going back. Yeah, okay, I'll just start on this one. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, slide projectors weren't much better. The old one. So he was somebody, I'm driving by, and he was leaning across the road a certain way. There was a bend in the road, and he was standing and leaning in, and I thought, oh, that's magnificent. And then I pulled over and rolled down my window, and I'm kind of strapped in, and I couldn't get out of my seatbelt fast enough, and he'd crossed, and I say, can you come over here? So I was with the University of Tennessee, the art department, and that's just all I would say. I'm with the University of Tennessee art department, and I'm working on a project. That's a very good thing to say, because then you're all of a sudden with, and especially in Tennessee, they're such fans of the Vols, the football team. So in some way, by my taking their picture, they're sort of helping the Vols' efforts. But he's leaning in, and that was good. So I just took that. I wanted the pictures to be, portraits, very portrait-like, but I wanted them to be spontaneous and sudden. Then I did go out and try to recreate what he was doing with leaning, and he was, obliging. But this picture was the better. And so I'm playing a little bit with the game of, the side, the car, shooting at the car window. I think there's, even though it's out of focus, there's, this does identify it as being along the interstate system. So in some cases, the people are hitchhikers, and sometimes it just simply seems that way. Photographs never explain anything. Here, I think it's amazing, just all the definition, and then here, it's so completely. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but they are semi-staged in that they were really there, but I had to kind of overwhelm this, the situation by just announcing myself, and then I needed to stand in the right place. So you have to insist on being in the right place, because otherwise it's just not going to work. And there was really a very narrow band where the sun would hit the side of her face. So, it's just a 5-second thing, but her head had to be in the right spot, because otherwise you wouldn't go to the eye. And so they are very naturalistic, but there is some control involved. And now that I've said that, here's a perfectly candid picture. These girls look like they could have been transported from a Helen Levitt photo. Also, it's a very small area. The bridge where I was on to take this photo, at a different point in time, this man is underneath that bridge. Most of the photos were made within a mile of where I lived. And in most of the pictures, something is just implied that something's happening. It's not a large drama. This one is actually, a larger drama. Something is actually. I'd photographed him before, and I saw him like a week or so after this. But in this case, he had been. There was a police officer there, and the police officer said, "Yeah, he's been mixing his drinks." I don't know. So I always like to mix things up. I don't want just a book of portraits. I want to throw in still lives and candids. This might be using a bit the language of Lee Friedlander or Auger before him, of that kind of floating white rectangle, but I wanted to have a bit of a, well, just to have some stronger content. I think it's fortunate that it's called a Harp Funeral Home. So again, these are just pictures from South Central. And the title of the book comes from the South Central Bell telephone company. There are a number of photos of telephone booths in the book. Can you see this? I don't know. I'm never sure what you can see. Okay, I'm always asked about color photography. Just for me, with color, the sun comes out, the people start to smile, I become inept, so. Yeah, so a kind of a portrait, a little bit of direction. Again, it's important to me that he's got the stirring right in the center of the cup. It's important that there's some kind of moment included. This picture is the cover of the book. And this is how the book started. For all I have 3 books. It wasn't clear to me that they would all be published. Chris Pickler of an Israeli decided to, go ahead and keep, the sales were okay enough, so he decided to keep printing them. But this is how this book begins. And this is how the next book begins, Southeast. I moved down to Athens, Georgia, and the work changed. I thought I'd, just finished, that kind of population of maybe neglected older men, which is the main kind of star of South Central. And the work shifted more to younger people. Athens, it's a bit of a rock and roll town. So more women than in the previous book. So this picture was a cover of Southeast. So these are like the mid-90s. They go up to 2001. This is in Atlanta. And I got a Guggenheim grant, and that helped me to travel around. So there's, it's sort of the same world, but there might be pictures from New Orleans or Memphis. But it's the same kind of people everywhere and the same kind of settings. And the work changes in that I'm now doing some pictures by appointment. She was physically interesting to me. So I set up a time to meet them to photograph. The camera's on a tripod a lot. The lens is slightly wider than the previous, than the lens used for South Central. Did I say the camera's on the tripod a lot? I think I did. So she seemed interesting to me, just, looking like a Leonardo woman. And I'm interested in kind of this ramshackle elegance that a lot of these, young people lived in. This is Bourbon Street in New Orleans. This is in a coffee shop. I would just go and get a cup of coffee in the afternoon and have my camera in a tripod and make photos. Oop. Why? I always like to read this, since it's so true. Every day of my life forces me to add to the number of people who can kiss my ass. I'm a very resentful person. His hair is magnificent. I'm reflected in the sunglasses. This is in Mississippi. So like the other books, it's a mix, animal pictures. I like I just like lots of different things, some still lives. The camera's actually on a tripod for this to get that depth of field. It's a larger negative, so it looks, I think, like 35, but it's not. These are mostly in Athens, Georgia. I like different times of day, different kinds of weather, just to mix things up and make a complete world. A few nighttime pictures. So I'm pretty fast. I don't really recommend driving and photographing. I don't want that, so don't try this. No. Yeah, I'm fast and slow. Charlotte, North Carolina. I mentioned just quickly olive tree pictures. I'm sort of limited as a landscape photographer. I need a sort of a silhouette. Maybe it's black and white. In color, everything would split up. The greens and yellows would create contrast. I had an appointment to photograph somebody who wasn't there, but the cat came. This is a dogwood tree at night. And this is how I end Southeast. There's a small little kind of funny, maybe dark animal picture at the end of each one. And then this is the cover of Greater Atlanta. So each book, they're similar, it's a similar kind of look. I don't change my strategy as a photographer, but each book has a slightly different feel and different theme. This book might be more directly about civilization, contemporary American civilization. I was very concerned with thoughts of like the oil peak and, of course, global warming. And so a lot of the pictures, in a very, hopefully not didactic way, talk about our fossil fuel world. So she's at a gas station. And this is a pile of dirt that to me looks a little like the Sphinx. I'm a Sphinx freak. I guess I love the Sphinx. But here's the moon rising. And this picture is set against a poem by Lyndon, a Vietnamese American poet from Philadelphia, set in the year 3000. And it gives the whole body of work a bit of like an archaeological twist, like these are, bits and pieces from a past civilization, perhaps. This is road construction under the moon. And I think in a subtle way, the book, these two pictures are paired. References prehistory. So it's just, we're kind of an adolescent country. I heard one person laugh. I don't thank you. And the work, these are actually looking. They're actually looking a little dark. The book, there's a bit of a movement from a pastoral feel to the inner city of Atlanta. So we have some sort of rural types of pictures. Here's the baby, or a little bit like the angel on the ceiling. And it's, I don't want to be, again, didactic, but it's a little bit about, who's going to inherit this world. So there are some innocent kids in the book. Oh, there we go, innocent kids with freckles. So it's a bit of a catalog of our time with lottery tickets. We just saw the ATM machine, the drive-in window. But I hope it doesn't feel like a catalog. Big box store. Yeah, I like I like people with attitude. This is a neighbor. It's appropriate that this portrait is in this book because he's speckled with oil. So I like this sort of dichotomy of nature and civilization. There seems to be some division there. So this is downtown Atlanta on a Sunday morning. As is this. So there's no car in the parking lot. And in a way, the books do kind of just inadvertently, they kind of talk about the decline of at least payphones or phones in general. Here's a collision between phone pole and car. This picture is paired with this one in the book. The pedestrian's plight. So, a lot of pictures in the books echo one another, and there's, I think, a dialogue between the books. So anyway, father and son at the gas station in Atlanta. And this is how that book ends. Yes, I hope you can see it in the back. We have a little cat. So it's a little, a little pessimistic. And this is the sort of, I mentioned, this is the funny little animal picture at the end of Greater Atlanta. And, right. I always have to say he was okay. The little guy just needed to shake himself off. But so this is the end of Greater Atlanta, which is, if you bought the books in the sequence, this is the last book, and it came out in 2009. So this is the last picture of that book, and this is the last picture of South Central. So it's actually kind of very, very pessimistic because they kind of loop back, the squirrel who fell. Okay, sorry. This is just from a book that you can't buy. It's too expensive. The ancient tigers of my neighborhood. That's just, and those pictures are all. I'm not showing them here. Maybe one more, but those are all just within a few blocks of my house in Athens. Anyway. And then this last series that I'm showing, these are pictures of my parents and Paul Sheik in Oakland of TBW Books. He printed them as part of his series. It's just a story on the end of their lives. My father had this heart attack, and then eventually, developed a kind of dementia, I think from all these little mini strokes. And my mother had this sort of, she was fine, and then she developed this sort of rapid form of Parkinson's disease that maybe took 5 years or so. This is a book on them, and they have to move from this old house through a series of, to a newer house where everything's on one floor that's easier, and then rapidly to a series of assisted living and nursing homes. So you can see in the sequence, it's like that lamp, it's still there, same room, but they're moving out. That same piece of furniture, they're moving into a new house. And it just kind of happened. I guess I just trust that I'm going to take some pictures and that I'll take the right ones. But I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about a story or anything at this point, because I don't know the story. This is the back of my father. He was physically fine, but a little confused, and everybody else had walkers in this place. There's a little bird. In the book, this is the last one of my mother. So it seems a little like death approaches, maybe halfway through the book. And then this is the picture. It's labeled in the book with the date, so there are two pictures side by side. So it's the day that she died, and I think you can get that sense if you spend some time with the book. So this is on the morning. This is in the afternoon after she passed. And then my father is getting pretty unaware. He was, of course, a brilliant man, and it's a horrible thing. That Vermeer picture, he had that throughout his life. So I was interested in kind of this disorientation and sort of moving into darkness a bit. And that kind of light on the wall, that's from a light, the sun bouncing off of like a CD cover wrapped in the plastic still. Oh, okay. And that's the last picture in the book. And that's it. Thank you. Can we turn off this project? Is there something Thank you. So, are there any questions?
Can you say something about how you sequence your pictures within a book? Or just something about what goes through your mind or feeling as you're sequencing them?
Well, a lot of the books, they did take a lot of time, from the time that I took the pictures till the time that they came out, at least for the South Central, the South series books. And it's, so there's just a long time of slow percolation of thinking about things, and I would, go to lecture on occasion and bring prints, and you put the prints out on the table, and each time maybe two prints fall together, and you kind of see relationships. So there's a lot of kind of sorting and sifting, and just over time seeing new relationships between pictures. So anyway, I would say that there was a lot of time to think about the work, and then with Chris Picklert, an Israeli, he was just for me excellent to work with. He has I'm sort of slow to the computer world, and he has all these programs and was moving things around. But we work well together. but the sequencing, it's kind of intuitive. You have to. It's sort of intuitive and it's sort of intellectual. I'm not sure what I can say. There are sort of journeys, there are passages in the book. I did one thing that maybe changed my life when I was 18 was I entered college with an interest in the physical sciences pretty much. And then I took this winter course that lasted, just 1 month on the films of Michelangelo Antonioni. And we went through his films slowly, cut by cut. And then I studied a lot of film noir movies, gangster movies, and many of them were made by, Eastern European directors who just had a lot of integrity. And again, just seeing how those are sequenced. And so I think having studied films in a very slow way at an early impressionable age, that helped me to think about sequencing photo books. That's all. It's without getting to specifics, I can't say anything. More about that. Any other questions? Yes.
In situation where you interact with the people, like for example, the guy that's stirring the coffee cup, did you tell them continue to do what you're doing? Would they say, should I look at you? What kind of interaction goes on?
It varies each time. Again, there's some intuition involved as to how to talk to somebody. I try not to explain much or get into the details of what I'm doing if it's not necessary. I don't really want to. I want to be like a soft presence, so I'm not overwhelming the situation or creating waves. Mostly I say, I want to photograph people. I want to photograph people as they are, but it's hard to do that with, a large camera. You intrude on somebody's space, so I just try to approach people gently. But I am, one thing I don't mention. There is a lot of effort to this. There's a lot of physical sweat. So I'm walking around and. I'm probably pretty tired myself, so it helps to not wake people up. If you're too on edge, too caffeinated, and too sensitive, you're going to maybe scare people off or something. It's like I'm very good at photographing cats. I go and they look at me, they kind of perk up, and then I just stop, and then then I take another step in. Also, a lot of the pictures are done in the heat. In the south, and the humidity. There's just less. In the north, people have this sort of sharp physical awareness, maybe because of the cold, brittle air. Anyway, so Any more questions?
Mark.
Yes, okay. Oh, hey.
Hey. So what do you look for when you're photographing an animal versus when you're photographing a person? Composition, lighting, or are you interacting with them?
I know this guy, so I don't know what to say. Animals, I was teaching. I had a lot of crits today with students they seem very intellectual to me. I'm trying to like raise my so I can kind of talk on this level and then maybe bring things down a bit. But with myself, when I work, one of my secrets is that I don't talk to myself. I used to teach a lot, and now I just do these sort of short teachings, but there's no real dialogue about what to do. It's more like thumbs up, thumbs down, and just feeling my way. So I'll keep the mystery intact, Yes?
What makes you not want to address Christianity in your Southern work?
I did address it. It's just so loaded. I think I wanted just to keep it on the road, on America. For a lot of my work, it doesn't get too specific in terms of like a date on the calendar. There was that one picture I stopped on. It was like Bourbon Street, New Orleans. It was just some guy with smoking, and it was actually done during Mardi Gras. But if you go through my contact sheets at Mardi Gras, you don't see. Maybe there are some beads, but I was really just using it to using that event to more comfortably photograph people, because there's a lot of things going on and a lot of cameras out there. And so I don't want to kind of raise certain issues like Mardi Gras. And then the Christianity, it just didn't seem to fit. It's more about the pictures about these regular American spaces and, sure, they might be linked to time in terms of the weather or the time of day or the season. But then when you're getting to Christianity, it just felt a little like you're kind of moving and you're kind of thinking about something different, and it wasn't really central to what I wanted the work to be about. So, yes?
Going back to what you said with Mardi Gras, where there's a lot of cameras floating around, do you feel like it's changed in terms of just the increase in cell phone cameras? Like, for example, photographing summer camp, do you still do that? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, just practically, it used to be a little more a special event to photograph somebody, and maybe it still is if you've got a larger camera and you're using film, but yeah, it's changed. There's so many cameras out there, and in terms of my photographing, I'm still doing silver prints, black and white. It's a lot of work, but it's not like what they had to do in the 19th century. You can do it. What is this? Is there a foghorn back there? I took a nap today, and I've woken up and I'm a little like, what? But am I on a cruise ship? Where am I? I mean, things have changed. People are more, maybe they're a little wary of the uses of photos now because things can be disseminated so easily. But I think people are a little more. Some people are a little more exhibitionist these days than they used to be. Like Facebook, it's like good to have your photo taken and to be, it's kind of like, I don't know. I can't really imagine what it is. But some people like that, maybe more in some ways than they had in the past. So, yes.
Sorry to barrage you with so many questions. It seems to me like many of your projects take place in a particular place in the world, and yet the project itself, it only is maybe marginally, or a part of it, only a part of it is about describing that place. Mm-hmm. And you're describing actually something else. And I don't know, it's an interesting thing that many photographers choose. They title the book sometimes, or they kind of want the book to identify as being about a particular place, and yet it's only part of that architecture that holds up that project or that piece of work. And I'm curious on your musings on why that is often.
For other photographers, or
For yourself, particularly.
Well, I think that the pictures are a bit tied to place. You can't. Maybe you can find some of the same people in places in Portland, Oregon, or or Austin, Texas, or wherever. I mean, I named the book South Central and Southeast. South Central instead of calling it Knoxville. I didn't feel it was so specific to the place. I think photography. I think it's very hard to describe something in a thorough way. I think people are kidding themselves. I mean, to photograph a house, well, you need 100 pictures or something, Otherwise, you're just seeing. Photography is just bits and pieces. It's only slices from this angle. The people I'm photographing, you don't know what their lives are like. But at this moment, in this light, with this setting, it looks like something, it looks a certain way. I guess I don't believe in so much in photography as a true describer of, like, reality. The title South Central or Southeast, they're very useless titles. What is South Central? What's that possibly? It's more about rootlessness, or it's a bureaucratic, a term a bureaucrat would come up with. And a lot of, America's a very mobile society. It's a very rootless society, and I'm not. Like from the South, there are some Southern photographers who are very attached to their identity, but I'm of European ancestry, so it's not like I just don't believe it, that. Okay, anyway, I just don't believe it. I have no faith. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.